beautiful dress on. She's trying to hide her face in shame, but she has the job of health and safety here at the castle. Nobody likes her. She's by herself. She has no friends whatsoever, and essentially she spoils everybody's fun. I'm not going to tell you her name because he's really going to be very upset. I haven't said nothing, okay? So after 3, let's all tell her what we think of her. Now, we did talk at great length for at least 4 or 5 minutes on an alternative. I'm not sure how it works. It's something to do with paperwork, but she says we can throw out a small child. I've got a glum face here. Okay, we're going for plan C then. Plan C is not quite as exciting as throwing out a live child. We're going to throw out a piece of food onto the lawn. Now, Ernie cares not whether it's alive or dead. All he has to do is essentially jump on it. And that's the only thing he has to do, is get his feet on his breakfast. So at night time, he uses the darkness to sneak up on things. His soft feathers make no noise whatsoever. But when he gets there, he has to quite literally nail it to the floor. So he'll throw his feet forward beyond his face and quite literally smash it into the floor. So if he can, keep an eye on this. And as Ernie hits it, well, we should see exactly what's going to happen. Okay, Ernie, we're going for action, drama, and excitement. It would help if you were turning this direction. He's actually pointing that way. Oh, no, look at him there. He's like a coil spring ready to explode. Here we go, Ernie. Are you ready? Go, 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 go. Feel the energy from the crowd. I know he didn't get it. There's someone going, he didn't get it. I said, I know that. That was a huge build-up that I gave you there. And to say that I'm disappointed is an understatement, okay? That's not an excuse, okay? So basically, if you land beside a rat in the wild, it's not going to be there when you bend down and pick it up, okay? It's going to run off at 100 miles an hour in the opposite direction. Look at me when I'm talking to you. You're just totally wrecking my show at this point. Go back up into the tree. That was absolutely pathetic. Don't do the R thing with me. I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking this owl is rubbish. And he is. You've got to work with the material that you've got. Actually, if he said he's totally rubbish, isn't entirely true. I don't know whether I dare tell you this, but in front of about 2,500 people, a couple of weeks ago, Ernie's had what I would call his red letter day. It was amazing. I threw out a piece of food onto the lawn, and normally owls sit still. Their very existence relies on it. They have to be camouflaged during daylight hours. This day, I threw the piece of food out on the lawn. Ernie is in the tree, and he's going crazy, and they bob their head from side to side every now and again, up and down. He looked like some crazy disco dancer in the tree. Took off, flew across the arena here, straight to the top of that tall, thin tree in the courtyard, and with no formal training whatsoever, he actually caught a squirrel. Honestly, you can't make this stuff up. It was amazing. This is in broad daylight. So he has a 5-foot wingspan. He's traveling at 25 miles an hour. This squirrel had to be blind, daft, possibly dragging a leg up the side of the tree. He then fell out of the tree into the courtyard. And if you saw an owl scrapping with a squirrel, you'd want to have a look, wouldn't you? Everybody that was in the courtyard ran across to Ernie. I'm pretty sure he misunderstood their intentions. Maybe he thought they were going to nick his squirrel. When I got there, I was expecting the biggest fight in the world going on, and when I got there, there was a picture of tranquility. Ernie's natural instincts had jumped in. He'd squeezed the squirrel to death with his big, powerful feet, and he'd actually swallowed the whole squirrel down in one go. The only reason that we all knew it was a squirrel is because he had a big furry tail sticking out of the side of his mouth for about 4 hours until it went down into the melting pot. So we do know that you can use your feet, Ernie. I'm going to give you one more chance to redeem yourself. This is for the pride of the bird show and all of the intensive training that's gone in there, Ernie. Ready? Go, go, go. Oh, he was faster. Good line.
Nope.
You are quite clearly the fattest owl in the world, Ernie. You're not really taking this job very seriously at all, are you? Let's give Ernie a big round of applause. Woo! You were absolutely rubbish. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't care, does he? He's like, yeah, whatever. He's hoping that he's going to get another piece of food as well here. Look at him, he's going like, look, I can see what he's doing in that bag. He's got all the food in there. So, I'm now going to place Ernie in this box, and I don't want you to think this is a punishment. That's just so that he doesn't see the next bird that we're going to have a look at, and the next bird that we're going to have a look at. He's Bruce, everybody, and Bruce is actually a Chilean eagle. So the Chilean eagle is quite a colourful bird, sometimes called a blue Chilean eagle or a grey eagle buzzard. It's actually got a wingspan of somewhere around about 4.5 feet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why we actually have birds here at the castle and what's it all about. Well, in yesteryear, it certainly wasn't about, I guess, education. It wasn't about conservation. It was all about trying to feed yourself. And people around the world for many, many hundreds of years have been using raptors to hunt and to provide them with food. And falconry started in the Far East and China, and they probably saw somebody, I suppose, out and about, walking around, saw a hawk or a falcon catch something, and being inventive as human beings are, we decided to go out, catch a hawk, and then train him to catch breakfast for us. Now you have to understand that life in yesteryear was incredibly difficult. People were living on a diet of root vegetables, maybe a bit of mutton thrown in as protein, so anything that you caught was going to be in addition to your diet. So if you've trained a raptor to fly and soar around in the sky, from lofty perches up there on his wings, he can dive out of the sky at incredible high speeds. For a bird of this kind of size, maybe about 150 miles an hour. And that is far faster than pretty much anything can move on ground level. So it is an amazing sight to see a bird fall from the sky, and it really is breathtaking. At 150 miles an hour, you might think that is as fast as it gets, but in actual fact, there's a bird called a falcon. There are many types of falcons, but the peregrine falcon, I guess, is the best known, and that can do 232 miles an hour towards the floor, which makes it the fastest bird on the planet. And a peregrine falcon has always been a sought-after hunting companion. Now, this particular bird, the Chilean eagle, I'm not saying is the best bird in the world, but what I'm actually saying to you, he's about the right kind of size to do the job that I require. So if I was hungry and I was trying to feed Auntie Gertie, the cat and the dog as well, then I need a raptor that has got broad wings that can soar around in the sky. Today we're operating on a wind that is blowing down the hill, but imagine the scene. If the wind was blowing up the hill, then the bird can very, very quickly head up into the heavens, and from that lofty perch with his keen eyesight, which incidentally is about 8 to 10 times better than mine and yours. It's like having a pair of binoculars strapped on you all the time. It is able to see its breakfast, dive down out of the sky, and of course catch its prey. This is a bird that hasn't incidentally been taught how to hunt, and is it important that the birds do actually have to be taught? So in captivity, we get all of our birds, they're bred in captivity in aviaries, and the aviaries are usually quite small, maybe half the size of this arena here, and then all they can do is flap about from one place to another. So at the castle we have a base up in North Yorkshire on the side of a mountain called Pennygent, and that is where all of our raptors learn their flying skills, just as they would do in the wild. If it was a wild bird, then he would fledge from the nest, he would follow ma and pa around, learning how to fly, and then crucially he would learn by example how to catch things. And in days gone by, they would have actually just taken raptors from the sky that already have their hunting skills, and that makes them immediate hunting partners. And the relationship is purely and simply based on food. It's exactly the same as Ernie just flying 10, 15 feet from post to post, but this bird knows that I want him to fly and soar around in the sky. And if we had the right kind of wind, then of course he would easily be able to charge about the sky. On a day when you don't have a lot of wind, essentially the bird is always going to do the bare minimum. But because this is actually a smallish kind of bird, I can carry around on the end of my arm, and even on a still day, he can dash off my fist at high speed and catch his breakfast, dinner and tea. And as I said, all of the birds that we have here all have the flying skills to be able to work here at the castle, but they have not been switched on crucially. But it does go horribly wrong. In the case of Ernie, it didn't take very long at all. only about 2 weeks for him to decide that a squirrel was actually a yummy, yummy item and he wanted to eat it. And this bird's father worked here at the castle for some 10 years, and he was one of our best kind of demonstration birds, always off on the backside of the castle when the wind was blowing up the hill. He would go up to thousands of feet up in the sky, and it all horribly changed one day when his father, well, decided that he quite fancied the duck à l'orange. We were having a dive from the sky at about 150 miles an hour, 500 feet from ground level. He changed direction, which was very unusual for his father. He was always very focused on the food, but as he was flying down towards the earth at 150 miles an hour, two ducks that quite clearly were in a serious rush to get a drink, they must have eaten a cream cracker or a Ribena or something like that, decided to fly across the arena, and to my horror, his dad, something inside had triggered and he was on intercept, and I knew exactly what was going to happen next. As he was on hot pursuit, I looked around at the crowd. There was maybe 2,500 people here, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, they're not going to like this next bit. But when he hit the duck about 80 feet up in the sky, the crowd went wild. They loved it, they did. There wasn't a person that didn't come up to me and say that was amazing. But there was about 500 children here that were emotionally scarred when he carried on flying with the duck into the tree behind the archery section there, and as far as his dad was concerned, that was the end of the demonstration. He's got a duck in one foot, standing on a branch on the top of the tree, pulling feathers out of it. The wind was blowing up the hill. It was like it was snowing here at Warwick Castle. There were that many feathers flying around. But his father fell out of the tree, and we were actually able to recover him before he'd had a meal. And we were thinking to ourselves, he's a professional, he's done 10 years here at the castle, he'll be back to work tomorrow, he'll have forgotten all about that duck. But how wrong were we? Over the next 10 days, he caught 5 more ducks, 2 jackdaws, a magpie and a grass snake on the mound there in a 7-minute window of opportunity. So that just gives you an idea of the sort of stuff that you can do with a bird like this. And this could easily feed you and your family without any problems at all. And that's exactly how it was in days gone by. But when the shotgun was invented in the 18th century, a lot of falconers essentially just gave up flying birds. The love of flying birds was not there for a lot of people. It really was just a tool. And when the gun came out, people just used to go out and shoot the food. So falconry sort of died out. Anyway, let's give Bruce a big round of applause. He's done very, very well. Woo! Now, we're going to move on to a serious heavyweight, and I did say that we have some seriously big birds here at the castle. The next bird that we're going to have a look at is one of the largest eagles in the world. And there are many contenders for the largest eagle in the world. If it was just about wing length, then there are many birds with a 2 meters 440 or 8 feet wingspan. But actually, the 3 contenders for the largest eagle in the world are not the ones with the longest wings. It's actually the ones with the heaviest body. So what you're actually looking at here is a Steller's sea eagle, and it is one of the largest eagles in the world. It comes from eastern Russia, Japan, and Korea. There's a peninsula called Kamchatka, the Sea of Hokkaido. That's where you would expect to find the Steller's sea eagle at home. And Nikita is never and has never been a wild bird. She was born in the Czech Republic, came here, and she's now 9 years of age. She does actually have a boyfriend as well. He's called Marvin, and every day they fly here at the castle. And when they're not actually working at the castle and we move up to North Yorkshire in the midst of winter, last year for the first time they built an enormous big nest, about 1.5 tons of twigs. They lined the nest cup with sheep wool and feathers, but actually failed to get to the point of laying eggs. And I don't know whether that is just because Marvin is still a little bit young, but we're going to keep our fingers crossed that next year, this winter coming, that we should be able to breed Steller's eagles. And we do breed about 8 or 9 different species of eagles here that we use at the castle. So Nikita is a stunning creature. It's absolutely gorgeous to look at. Most people are very impressed by this serious tin opener that it has on the front of its face. And what that is for, by the way, is for eating frozen meals. This is a bit exciting, children. There we go. Yes, I know, they always go to the toilet just when you don't want them to. But the reason they go to the toilet is essentially because they're about to take off. And when you're one of the heaviest eagles in the world, it's absolutely pointless taking 8 ounces of poo to the top of the castle. So birds always go to the toilet just before they're about to set off. So if you ever see a bird having a poo, you know it's going to take off the very next minute. So Nikita and Marvin, as I said, we're very hopeful that we're going to be able to breed them, and they are birds that we find very, very good to look at, but they're also excellent fishermen. So in the wild, they would never, ever, ever do anything very strenuous, like chase a bird round the sky. Maybe Bruce is small enough to be able to do that, but this is a bird that takes a fish off the surface of the water, and then if there's any option to have an easy meal, then they will do so. So what they actually do, a lot of the time, they visit nesting colonies of birds. They'll eat baby birds that are unattended, and they will quite literally eat any carrion at all. So although me and Nikita have been working together for 9 years now, you might think that that would mean I'd be able to tickle it under the chin or maybe pat it on the head, but the reality is that we're, well, work colleagues rather than work friends, and she sort of knows that I'm a bit in charge. I have to sort of toe the line every now and again. She has got massive big feet, bigger than a man's hands, and on the soles of his feet, because she catches fish mainly, she has almost like Velcro. Really, really rough skin, but they so serious toenails that hook into the fish and pull it off. But when we're flying Nikita on a daily basis here at the castle, she normally has to fly all the way to the top of Guy's Tower. And this morning, when she was off at 11:30, that's her show, she actually, well, did an awful lot of flying around. Because we had the wind blowing down the hill, it was really blowing really strong. She went off for about 3/4 of a mile in the opposite direction. Eventually got back to the top of the castle, but when you have a big heavy body, if it's not very windy, then essentially most of the time they just sit still and watch the world go by. And this is a bird that in winter has to survive temperatures that go down -40, so this is a bird that can sit in the freezer -40 for a couple of weeks and not even dint it. It really is a seriously tough eagle indeed. And the eagle, incidentally, was always reserved for the king or the emperor. And that isn't because it's the best bird, by the way, it's actually because it's the most powerful. And that's why they're long associated with status symbols and things like that. Anyway, let's give all the birds a really big round of applause. They've done very, very well for us. That's about as exciting as it's going to get. So do enjoy your evening here at Warwick Castle. Thank you very much for watching, and bye-bye for now.